So, having spoken to you a little bit about this subject before, the subject of, I think we could call it, unless you want to call it something else, the masculine feminine principles, or the masculine feminine dynamic, or the interplay of the masculine and feminine. First of all, do any of those resonate with you as something we could call this conversation?
I can work with any of these.
Okay,
Yes.
with any of those. So currently, it may even be best to keep one's mouth shut about it, because there's so many opinions about the masculine and the feminine, and so many opinions about patriarchy versus feminism. It's a kind of loaded topic. But with that in mind, I recommend we just kind of put that to the side.
The loadedness, take all the load.
Take the loadedness, because we still all have our thoughts about that, even though there are plenty of people who think there are only certain thoughts about that are the right thoughts, and certain thoughts about that are the appropriate thoughts. We're going to put all that to the side, because you know what? We could just delete this recording.
I like your thinking.
Okay, good. So, I don't know if there have been more books written about relationship, and in particular, masculine and feminine dynamics in relationship, than anything else in the world.
You think so?
I think so.
Huh.
I think there's a lot that's said about it, a lot that's written about it. So I know you have a particular, I don't know whether to call them set of principles, or but you should, let's start off by you saying something about how you perceive that area of life.
I mean, I think if you said that they were written, it's obviously a conversation that's been going on for thousands of years. So I don't necessarily maybe can say something that hasn't been said before, but I look at it very simple. I think a lot of the problems today, in a way, we almost identify ourselves way too much with our sex, and not enough with our sex at the same time. So we identify with our sex at the places where it shouldn't matter, even like the whole idea of feminism, like to me should be more humanism, like we are all humans and we should all be treated as humans, looked as humans, and the whole man woman just shouldn't even be looked at as man woman. It should be more looked at as humans, and find our humanity, and find where we're human, and we all should have equal rights, and we should all live on the same sky and all that as humans. And where we should look at our sex is when it comes to sex.
Yeah.
And that should be the only place we look at it. And then we should really, really look at it there, and we should really, really emphasize it. And we should, because I believe that in the polarities where the attraction happens, the passion happens, the fun happens, that sexual intimacy happens, the magic happens. And we should look at that when it comes to sexually intimate relationship. And outside of that, we should just look at ourselves as humans.
And I don't think you're talking about, well, let me see. I don't think I think you're talking about polarity as something that men have and women have. So I have, um, uh, I am a entire constellation. Like sometimes people say a spectrum, but I'm beginning to prefer a constellation of everything from the most queenie, femi, um, uh, feminine way of being to the most testosterone laden, meat eating, lumberjacking kind of masculine energy as well. So we're not talking about heterosexual relationships here,
No,
right?
no. I mean, I to me, I love what you're saying, because to me, the name of the game is being conscious and playing consciously. So the more you know the spectrum or the constellation, and the more, with range comes freedom, with range comes fun and liberation, where I'm not stuck in a role as a masculine or as a feminine or as a, but if we can consciously play together and we could just almost like a dance, and I believe the more range one has, the more options you have, the more freedom you have, and the more fun you have. So if you're not stuck in roles and you try to identify in your role and all that, you're like, in a way, you can even like, well, what's going to bring the most intimacy, the most connection, the most fun, the most sexiness, the most passion, and where in the spectrum I want to pick to show up right now in order to bring that. And if you have a partner that can play with you the same way, you guys can have, we can all have so much fun and so much awareness and consciousness and all that.
So then, I think everything you're saying is something that many people want. Many people want liberation. Many people want freedom. And yet, where we seem to be trapped, and we seem to be trapped in stories, narratives, conversations about relating and sexuality and gender, that in this era we have the opportunity to transcend, so that even if I agree with what you're saying and ascribe to what you're saying, I'm find myself still protecting myself from being hurt, being left out, being dismissed. And I think sexuality is a place where those kind of feelings and thoughts get triggered.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, there's so many stories that we create around the subject, right? From starting from our parents and our religion and our culture and our country and Walt Disney and Hollywood and
Well, and then the problem is I'm not awake to that I'm the one who bought into that, or I'm the one who's co-opted that story and it's become my story. I think that's the true story.
that's where it becomes a problem, yes. And
Yeah.
that's why nowadays, to me, even becoming more of a problem, because even with the whole, in a way, we're looking at the whole like, I don't even know how many genders are like now.
Oh, it seems infinite, the
Infinite.
number of
And to me,
And the,
people look at that as liberation, and to me, it's like I look at it almost the opposite. To me, it's like you creating more boxes to put yourself inside of.
and smaller
Smaller
boxes.
and smaller boxes. Yes, it's like, well, let's just all liberate all these, and
Yeah.
like, I don't, I don't care. I mean, like you can literally have conversations in the Bay Area, like, excuse me, how dare you assume my gender? It's like, yeah, you can't even. You have to like watch,
Yeah.
which is fine. I don't mean to assume anyone's gender or race or, but if I gotta be so, instead of conscious now, I have to be self-conscious of how I say every word, and that gets in the way of intimacy and real relationship because everyone's protecting their little box and you can't touch their little box and everyone's so righteous about their box.
Yes. Easily insulted and easily offended, I think, is so not sexy.
Ah, yes.
And it's so not fun.
No.
Like fun becomes a dirty word.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, that's why we got to do our work to, like when you say, like, to recognize the stories and recognize what's ours and what's not. And when you buy into those stories, they become, when they get challenged, consciously or unconsciously, it starts to become a problem. Everyone becomes very defensive and protected instead of us coming together to connect in love and intimacy and connection instead. Like
Yes, and protected and defensive is like not good for sexual expression.
no.
It's like, why bother?
Yeah. So yeah, how do we have intimacy and connection and sexiness and fun?
So, what kind of stuff do you do with people? I mean, knowing that all of that is what most people are bringing with them.
How do I address that?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people, when they talk about wanting instruction or coaching or workshops, etc., about male, female, masculine, feminine polarity, are really looking for the right answer. So they're really looking for a magic bullet. They're not okay with themselves and they want to be fixed and they want you to fix them. Well, good luck. So what do you do?
Yeah, most people don't even want to be fixed. They want to just. I mean, I mostly work with men.
Uh-huh. I think that's probably a lot easier.
You think so?
I think so. For many years I led a course that that spoke to waking up to things like this. And what I realized soon after I started leading it, that was that men were very aware that they were clueless about women or nearly clueless. And they might have been a little embarrassed about that, but they would freely talk about that. Women, however, felt like they knew everything about men. In fact, they felt that if only men were more like women, that would resolve everything. And they didn't know that they didn't know anything in that area, or they didn't know that they knew very little in that area. They had a lot. God, this will probably get me
In trouble.
defriended by everyone on the internet, but
I'll still love you.
yes, but they were so arrogant. The men were not arrogant about that.
Mm-hmm.
Men were kind of hopeful that maybe they could get a clue. The women were clueless and arrogant.
Mm. It just makes me sad. Well, I think if we just all come to, if we can improve our intimacy in a relationship tremendously, if we just come from a place of I don't know, if we
Yeah, well, how do you work with people such that you engender some sort of recognition of that isn't ridiculously threatening?
I mean, the only way I find how to do that is in during workshops. So it's like at workshops, if it were 3 days together, we come together as a community. Everyone is vulnerable and open and safe, and then we start to trust each other, and then the walls start to come down, and we start to experiment, taking a chance and taking a risk of just being ourselves. And I mean, like, my workshops are for men, but I invite women there. So this beautiful thing happens with and how a woman would respond to a man that has his walls down, and then he gets to experience himself in her eyes in a way that he hasn't before, and feel how sweet and how juicy and how powerful that feels. Even though it's really scary and vulnerable, it's very powerful.
Yes, I could completely see that, but then don't you think that has to do with there's been this created context, this particular container inside of which that can bloom and flourish? What happens when that container is not there any longer? Like, what are some of the lasting results?
Yes, there's definitely a container of safety and community and all that
Right.
created, so people are willing to take a chance. Um, I mean, I think all teachings, and any teaching, as ancient or new that it is, all teachings just point the way. No teaching is the answer. So I believe that what I do is just try to show the way, try to show what's possible, and then it's up to the people to be like, wow, I saw what's possible, I see what can happen, and then it's up to them to continue down on that road, because once they've had it once, they've experienced it once, they know what's possible. So now it's up to them to continue to do the work. I've done lots of workshops. When I had powerful experience in workshops, and I've gone workshops where I got the high of a workshop and then go about my life and nothing changed, or I take
Right.
the high with me. I stay connected to the community, to the people in the workshop, to other people. I start changing my community. I start continuing the practices that I was given, and then over time, my life started to change.
Yes.
There isn't a magic bullet. I don't have one. I'm not selling one. So nothing's gonna give you that. That I mean, if people have huge breakthroughs and awakenings that they can never go back to.
Yeah.
So that happens, but you have to be willing to continue the work.
Yes. So in your workshops, do you emphasize that? That do you like make it clear to people that after the workshop, they have to continue to do the work in order to get the results of the workshop?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I do, and I try to offer. I've giving them all kind of support, and to make sure they have what they need. Usually in my workshops, what I end up doing, I have a lot of huge support team.
Uh-huh.
Like I more often than not, I have more support than participants.
Uh-huh.
And all the support that I have is usually people that are either coaches or teachers or of any sorts, and I'm like, now you've met all these people, including myself and other people. Like all these people can hear the thing, even if you don't work with them professionally. Just like reach out to them, ask them a question, stay connected with them. These days with social media and everything, it's so easy to stay connected in this world and, you know, expand your community and expand your horizons. So I know it's possible because I've done it, and I came here, didn't know anyone, and I've grown my community by staying connected to it.
And how old were you, and where did you come from?
Well, I originally came to America when I was 17, and I came from Bulgaria.
And you came by yourself?
I came by myself.
Yes. Okay.
Crazy.
Okay. Impressive.
Thank you. It sounds impressive. I don't think it was impressive at the time. Looking back on it, it sounds pretty impressive. Yeah. So I mean, again, like I think the biggest thing that I like to talk about, it's in our equality, our fight for equality, we somewhere there we mix equality with sameness. And even like these days, it's clearly that the feminine and the women are rising up to power and wanting more. And one thing that really makes me sad about that is that a lot of women that are raised to power is they're trying to be men. And that makes me sad. It's like, well, you fight. There's this big fight for feminism and all that, but then in the end, so you're just gonna be like a man. Like, I want to see women leading from their feminine. I'm just really curious what would that be like. And again, not to going back to the beginning when we're talking about it, is the whole constellation. Being a woman doesn't mean you're stuck being feminine. Yes, have the range. But I also believe that given our bodies, the way our bodies are different in many ways, the feminine body is more designed to run more radiance and more feminine energy, and the masculine body is more designed to run more like directional, more dry, and more masculine energy. Doesn't mean that the man cannot embody the feminine and the other way around.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, the whole patriarchy and this and that's like, let's just liberate ourselves from all that, and like, what's your authentic expression of who you are, and express that into the world.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yes.
And how do we consciously play that in intimate relationship? That's
I know, that's interesting. Like what does relationship look like when you keep giving up having to protect yourself?
Wow. That's a powerful statement. What relationship look like when you're giving up having to protect yourself? I mean, it's extremely raw. It's extremely vulnerable. But from the tastes I've had of that, it feels the most gratifying, more satisfying, the most alive, and the most
fun.
Most fun. And yet it feels really raw, and that's why people don't do it. It's so raw and vulnerable, and we walk through the world not wanting to feel that way, yet when you feel that way, you feel more alive. One thing that I associate with that, it's when you die raw, people associate almost like tears always with like crying, with sadness. But I feel like when I'm in really intense state of being alive, and especially in intimate relationship, like there's so much sensation, so much life that just tears are just an expression of being alive. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm interested in exploring, teaching, and talking about, and that's why I do what I do. That's why I do this work. It's
That's great. Thank you.
oh yeah, it's my pleasure.
That's your thing.
That's my thing. Makes me happy doing it.